Hey, and how's everyone doing? You are live with Denzel Snipes. It's Snipe Talk only around here. And I'm here also with Sean Russey, the sports agent himself. And this is the Sports Insider. So before we get started, we got a bit of a show for you here. Won't take up too much of your time. We know the Stanley Cup Finals is coming on. All we ask is about 10 or 15 minutes. We'll have you off to your hockey game. I want to see the game myself. Speaking of which, you know what? Before we even get started, Sean, who do you have on in the series, man?
I think the Panthers are going to pull it out again. I'm a Rangers fan personally, so I would love to see Edmonton kind of upset the Eastern Conference. But I think the Panthers got this again. They just seem to have the Hurricanes number, and they seem to have the Oilers number. Two teams that seem to fool the rest of the NHL, but the Panthers seem to get both of them year in and year out.
Yeah, it looks like they might repeat. And I know you're down there in the Florida area. I don't know if the city of Orlando is pulling for the Florida Panthers. They probably are. Um, but no, you know what? As much as I would like to see Edmonton become the first Canadian team in 30 years to win a Stanley Cup, it's something about that Florida team, man. Like they can be down in the series, but when they pull it together, that's it. So. Um, I have a feeling the Panthers are going to pull it out again, but we'll see. Shout out to Dave DeRocher, who watched his very first NHL hockey game last year, and it was the Western Conference Finals, and the Edmonton Oilers won like 1-0 one of the games. The game that he watched, and he was like, "Yeah, Edmonton is the best team in the league." And everything. But no, before we get started, be sure and follow us on all of our platforms. Hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube for all updates and new episodes on Sideline Sports. Also, check us out on Sideline Sports One. We are on TikTok. Our guy Jacob Christner always putting up great material on there. My TikTok is back up on track. I actually put out commentary regarding our Truth's return, and then also Monday Night Raw with Gunther winning back the World Heavyweight Championship. So please go and check me out. I am at hold on, what's my TikTok? I'm like, what's my TikTok? What is it? It's Denzel Snipes 13, in which it actually hold on, hang on. I was on Mr. Time stuff. Okay, yeah. At Unconventional King 13. That's Unconventional King 1-3. The E in unconventional is a 3. So be sure and find me on there. Feel free to chime in with any commentary. We're also on X, of course. We're on Facebook, and yeah, just follow us and show us some support. And tune in for all updates, all shows, and everything throughout the week. We've got the Sideline Sports Show, the Gauntlet on Fridays. Check out all of our old episodes before the new season spins back up. Of course, the Sports Insiders right here. We got Confidential on Wednesday nights. Our guys at First and 56, our Indianapolis Coach Show. Our guys over there in the Western Pennsylvania parts, the Terrible Talk. For all you Pittsburgh Steelers fans, they got a show. And then also, if you want to go to the Great Pacific Northwest, our guys, Dave DeRocher, Walt Thurman III from the Legion of Boom fame with Hawk Talk, all Seattle Seahawks all the time. So if you're a Seahawks fan, or if you hate the Seahawks, maybe you're a 49ers fan, you want to come on there and talk some trash, come on there. There's a lot of great material, a lot of great shows on Sideline Sports. Also, Ken's Pet Talk, the New England Patriots show from our guy, from our guy Ken. So we're going to go ahead and get started here, and we're going to talk about WWE Money in the Bank that happened just last week, but there was a bit of cause of concern, and the question here is the WWE pricing out its own fan base? I have a theory on this. I got a theory on this one right here. So and you know what? Let me just look through the notes and make sure that you didn't mention this. You didn't mention this. Okay, so this is gonna be brand new. You probably heard of this, Sean. But did you know that the WWE is actually $3 billion in debt?
Yeah,
And that might explain why WrestleMania 42 was snatched from New Orleans and is headed back to Las Vegas this year. Um, this past April, they actually broke records in not only making money but in attendance as well. But yeah, they're like $3 billion in the hole. Now maybe that has to do with your commentary and such, but I'm gonna let you take the floor on this one.
yeah, it's kind of come out here. TKO is in debt, and like we talked about last week, them being privately owned, it kind of makes it a little harder for them to get funding to, cover that debt versus having, stock up and open for public buying. And that's, the theory is that's why, guys like our truth are having to take pay cuts, is because they are in debt. There's now stuff circulating around Roman's contract. I don't know how much you can mess with Roman's contract based on what he brings in to you, not only exposure wise, but just the fact that you get a cut of his movie deals. You get
Hmm.
a cut of everything he does outside of WWE. And I don't think most people probably know that these guys actually have to give a cut while they're under contract doing other things to WWE.
Yes, they
So
do.
while Roman Reigns may make 15 million from WWE, he also gives them a cut of stuff he does outside of WWE so that they get some of it back. So I think that's a little overblown that guys like that are going to have their contract reworked. But I think, you look at guys like Truth and, even probably like Chad Gable who've been around 10, 15, 20 years, that those guys are probably guys they're looking at going, hey, we need to make some adjustments because, yeah, we are suffering here. And I don't know if ticket prices are the way to do it because your crowd in WWE, your main, meat on the bones crowd is the blue collar worker.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing you want to do is start charging Beyonce concert ticket prices. To where someone is and someone out there is going to do it. To where someone is sacrificing next month's rent or rent for the next 3 months for that fact.
Yep. Yep. And now they're doing a lot of things where we're turning it into 3 and 4 days events. I mean, just the
Hmm.
last two, Saturday night's main event with other than Backlash, Saturday night's main event and Money in the Bank and WrestleMania. So three out of the last four have been 3 4 day events where they've either started with SmackDown or started with Saturday night and went to Tuesday. And then so you have those huge packages, and I think just the 3 to 4 days is a drain on people to even think that, okay, we're gonna really be able to do this. Come that fourth day, they're like, okay, everybody's ready to go home.
Yeah. Think about so WrestleMania. Oh man, I think it was 35. That was the last WrestleMania to be one day. Everyone since then has been 2 day events. The reason why they split it into 2 days was because the fans, while they did enjoy it, they were drained. That last one that happened out in they were at MetLife. They were in New Jersey at
It
MetLife.
went on forever.
Yeah, like in total between like the pre-show and then like there was the pre-show. WrestleMania's pre-show is like 2 hours. You know what
Yep.
I mean? They had matches, they had the commentary and everything, and then you had like the card, right? And at the end, it was like 7.5 hours. That was the
Yeah.
reason
No.
why they even split it in the first place. Now here's the good news: when you split it and make it 2 nights, you could actually add a couple more matches to the card. You know, it's just they just had these gigantic now. Here's the thing: they could actually get away with like 15 match cards if they put on pay per views at the pace as AEW. AEW has like 5 pay per views a year.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? And that actually was a question that I had sometime late last year. Because you actually have some months where they'll have two premium live events. You know what I mean? So you're putting on like 14, 15 a year. Now I'll ask you this one, and then we'll move on. Should the WWE go back to only showing like 5 pay-per-views a year, and just the big five? And think about it, because it gives booking and creative ample time to build rivalries leading up to the pay per view and everything like that, and not having a time crunch when it's like, okay, we just got done with a premium line of live event. Okay, perfect event, Saturday night main event, right? The last one that happened,
Yep.
Money in the Bank was 2 weeks later.
Yeah, and that Backlash was 2 weeks after Mania. Saturday Night was essentially 2 weeks after Backlash. There's no time to do really anything. You're just continuing what you've got going on in small little ways.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so do you think that they could actually afford to go back to? I'd say no more than six, because let's face it, the only reason why WWE even went to 12 pay-per-views, 12 premium live events per year, is because they were boxing it out with WCW. Eric Bischoff went
Hmm.
12, and so Eric Bischoff. Okay, so they had like like Starcade, Slamboree, Great American Bash, like the main stage, right? He started adding. He's like, okay, well, instead of going six, I'm gonna go like eight. So then WWE said, all right, we're gonna go eight. They started introducing in your house. You know. Then Eric Bischoff said, "Well, I'm gonna go every month." So then WWE did the same thing.
Yep.
Now you have, AEW. They're only putting on like five a year, dude.
Yeah, and obviously the two promotions are a little bit different in terms of their financial structures. But I think even if they did one every 6 weeks, which would get you down to about eight a year, I think that would be better in terms of a storyline perspective. Because when you do these things 2 weeks out, Saturday night's main event was basically a Raw, on steroids.
Yeah.
It moved a lot of storylines forward, but also at 250 average ticket price for a 2-hour show, there's some questions about the value you're getting there, as a consumer.
And then in this last part, so there was roughly 1,000 unsold tickets for Money in the Bank.
Now I know you watched, and it was the first thing I had mentioned to my girlfriend when we were sitting here watching. I was like, "Look at all those empty seats."
I noticed that too, and at first, and I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. I wanted maybe they're going to get a hot dog or something. You know what I mean? But I'm like, but hold on, the women's Money in the Bank ladder match is kicking off the show. They should be like, because everyone gets the program. You know,
Yep. And
everyone's in the
usually when
program.
someone hears it, if you're in the arena and you hear the entrance music and you're like, "Oh shit," that you'll see people rushing back to their seats.
Yeah,
There was none of that to start, and as you watched into the second match, none of those seats really filled up. So they had 1,000 unsold tickets for this one. I wasn't able to find the numbers on what was unsold for Saturday night's main event. They claimed both were sold out, but I've never heard them not claim an event was sold out. So
yeah. That is true. That is true. Well, we'll move on here to some notable NFL holdouts, namely T.J. Watt, Terry McLaurin. T.J. Watt, he's in the last year of his deal. He wants, and he also didn't show up for minicamp. They figured guy T.J. Watt, who is in year what 8 or something
yeah,
like
he's
that.
30. He's 31. So you could be looking at a situation where if they can't reach an agreement, especially at that age, you could see a contender come in, give him a 2-year deal at the money he wants, and make a trade for him. I don't think what we're hearing right now about Steelers shipping him to the Eagles. I even though they're out of the conference, I can't see them having. It's essentially a rival for Pittsburgh. I can't see them shipping him there. I think they would make the Eagles pay a heftier price than anywhere else he would get shipped to make that happen.
Yeah,
Um, I'm not sure. There hasn't been a lot of scuttle about them not getting this done, but I think this one drags in at least towards the preseason.
yeah. I mean, if the Steelers don't, I mean, I guess that because we're still like a year out, right? If they don't pick him up, I mean, who and assuming he wants to go to a contender, what would be the best fit for him?
Honestly, I think with the way they're really going for it this year with the signing of Bosa, I would put Buffalo at the top of the list, and then
Hmm.
I would probably rank Baltimore second, just because of their tendency to go after those types of guys just to add the extra rusher. Baltimore for 20 years, I don't care what's going on with Lamar Jackson. They're a defensive minded team because of John Harbaugh out there.
Hmm.
I think if Watt hits the market, he'll be very hungry to maybe bring him in on a 1 year, even if it's $20 million. Go get him.
Even if and as scary as it would be to think of having a Miles Garrett, T.J. Watt pass rush, you can take the Browns out of it because they're locked into the Deshaun Watson contract.
Yeah, and that's causing a lot of headaches. I mean, you could just tell by one, we've got three young quarterbacks now on the Browns roster, but two, it just based on how they were in free agency, you can kind of tell they're getting handcuffed by that upcoming dead money that they're gonna soak in here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then another, let's see, Trey Hendrickson, Terry McLaurin. I'd hate to see him leave the Commanders. And then you also got John Smith and Jalen Ramsey. Um, real quick on Jalen Ramsey. I mean, Jalen Ramsey is how old? He's about as old as T.J. Watt.
Yeah, he's getting, he's in those 30 years, and it's been talked about for a while that they've been seeking a trade, and they gave him permission to seek a trade. Nothing's happened. Nothing's happened on the contract front. I do think he'll eventually would show up to play. I don't think. I think he would show up, even though, if he thinks the Dolphins are not going to have a great season, show up and make yourself, better value for the trade deadline, which we now have seen is much more active in the NFL now. So maybe he stays in Miami through week 6, but I wouldn't also be shocked to see them just outright release him and just get out from under it. They're kind of moving some parts down there in Miami. They did bring in a lot of stars to all pro players, but they were all in that 30 to 32 range. You have Mozart, who's there, who I
Mm-hmm.
believe they've moved on from as well. It seems like they're going to move on from Tyreek Hill. They're kind of doing what we talked about with the 49ers last week. They're shedding the 30-year-olds. They're getting out of overpaying
They're
the,
getting
the, the
younger.
aging players.
Mm-hmm.
And
They're
then the
seeming.
Jonas, go ahead.
Shoot, they cut bait with long timer Xavier Howard, and he was in his late 20s.
Yep, and he was, it was that was an odd situation because he played really well for them. You would have thought they could have found a trade partner for him. So you kind of wonder, is Miami's asking prices just too high to have to eventually cut players, not understanding that, once you put a guy out there, you're not going to get tons of value. You're going to get a couple draft picks, and depending on the name, maybe you get a physical piece back. But usually, it's going to be draft picks and capital for later on. So I'm not sure what they think by when you put a guy out there, you're going to get that same value. Whereas if you were having those talks quietly in the middle of a season that he's having a good year,
Hmm.
so it was hard to say how far apart they are. I think the Ramsey thing is just like I said, they're cutting fat this year and cut now. Unlike Jonu Smith, he just outplayed his contract last year. He makes
Okay.
3.5 million. He completely outplayed that as a tight end. He's basically you could consider him now a top 10 tight end going into the season. For this season, at least. Um, and the Dolphins also tried to move him during the draft. So another situation where if the deal doesn't come money wise, they're probably going to move on from him as well. Now,
Okay.
you mentioned Hendrickson. That's probably the ugliest of all of them. Hendrickson even came out before camp and said this is now a personal thing for him.
Oh wow.
He doesn't like how the Bengals have handled it. He doesn't like the communication he's gotten from the Bengals. He said now this is personally that and he hates that he's going to have to go tell his family like, hey, I'm going to have to pay these fines to get this contract done.
Wow. Yep. And then you also got Terry McLaurin. I mean, I don't see him. Seeing as they've just started to become, contenders, a playoff team again, do you really see Terry McLaurin leaving Washington?
So I don't see him leaving. Maybe they rework him a little bit. I don't see him getting a huge bump. It'd be hard to justify based on, hey, you had basically your best year with Jaden Daniels, okay, but what happened? And I'm not saying those other guys were Daniels' talent, but body of work is what you're getting paid on, not what you did with Jaden Daniels.
That's true.
So I think the consistent body of work is not there for him to be doing this. So I don't think he's going to get a huge raise. I think Washington, especially having added Debo Samuel, you're not in a position to lose him because you added Debo to take pressure off of
Off of
McLaurin.
McLaurin, yeah.
So I think he'll get a little bit. I don't think you're going to see him crack the top 5 wide receiver money, but I do think they'll work something out there because, like you said, they're in a contender position. They made it, all the way to the NFC title game last year. You can't let him walk away and maybe even, start screwing with, the locker room, and then that goes onto the field, and you've got a whole different season because you let this guy walk.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then lastly, because we had an extensive topic on this one last week, we had to touch on Brandon Ayuk. If you want to go ahead and let people know about that.
Yeah, so this is interesting because he got the money he wanted last year, but apparently not the team he wanted. So now he's got the money he wants, and now he wants to force his way out of San Francisco again. He did have offers from the Texas and Patriots. It's well known that they were underneath what the 49ers offered him. I honestly believe the 49ers offer was higher. We've talked on it here before. The California has a much higher tax. I believe that's why the 49ers offer was a little bit inflated to cover that difference that he would have lost by staying in California.
Hmm.
Um, so for him to now come out and be like, well, now I want to leave anyways, it's like, wait, we gave you the money plus the bump. You didn't take the other deals where we could have got draft picks last year and you still want to go. If I'm the Niners, I'm not giving in. Let him hold out, hold in whatever he wants to do after his injury. But I would let him rack up fines at this point and just kind of show the rest of the guys like, hey, We've straightened out our negotiations this summer. We took care of Bosa, Warner, and Purdy within a 1 week period,
Right.
all before minicamp, which has never happened for the 49ers under John Lynch. So
Hmm.
we've taken care of that. We're showing you guys we're going to do extensions differently, but we're also showing you you're not going to force our hand every time you're unhappy.
Yeah, very true. And then and you figure, as far as the receiving core goes, they're essentially kind of starting all over anyway. You know, they still got George Kittle. Pearsall actually looks like a potential star on that squad. You know, who's to say they can't cut bait with Deep? They did with Debo. They can do the same with IU and just start all over.
Yeah, and for him to be doing the posting of the TO when he was with the 49ers working out in his driveway and kind of sending these silly messages on social, I could definitely see them letting, Ayuk come on the field, let him play the season out, and then they'll trade him for value in the offseason. But they're not going to just cut him or let him go for injury value right now just because he's bitching and moaning.
Yeah, no, very true, very very true. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is our show for today. Tune in to Sideline Sports Network. Once again, we're on YouTube. Hit the like and subscribe button for all updates and all new episodes. This is the Sports Insiders. Also, we got once again our flagship show, Sideline Sports. We got Confidential, First and 56, Terrible Talk, Ken's Pet Show. What was it? I just had it. Hawk Talk. Yeah, the Gauntlet. And also, you can go on our site on our YouTube and find scores of interviews and footage from the past Super Bowls that we've covered. But until next week, I am Denzel Snipes, and this is the sports agent himself, Sean Russey, and we will see y'all later.